Hello and thanks for joining us for the Midday News. The UNDP and the government of Papua New Guinea is strengthening efforts to protect whistleblowers. As part of the EU-funded Preventing and Countering Corruption in Papua New Guinea, UNDP and the Department of Justice and Attorney General facilitated 2 trainings on whistleblowers protection this month. The first training was an advanced training on whistleblowers protection for the public sector. It was a continuation of a basic training that UNDP and DJAG organized in October 2022. The second training, a training of the trainers on whistleblowers protection, prepared participants to facilitate training on whistleblower protection. Auditors and compliance officers from public sector, departments and agencies, including from the provincial level, attended. The training were a part of UNDP's ongoing efforts to build the capacity of public officials to implement the Whistleblowers Act 2020. Earlier this week, the Ministry and Department of International Trade and Investment and the SEZ Authority successfully hosted a Special Economic Zone Foundation Policy Consultative Workshop. The workshop brought together key agencies and stakeholders to present their cross-sectoral views and comments on the draft SEZ Foundation policy.
The Foundation policy presents the first national policy intervention to pioneer and guide the formal institution and implementation of the SEZ development program in Papua New Guinea. The primary focus of the Foundation policy is to define the SEZ, introduce the regulatory and governance framework, and detail the implementation framework to align the institution and implementation of the SEZ development program. Acting Secretary of Department of International Trade and Investment, Jacinta Warakai-Manua, says the Foundation policy is part of PNG's greater economic reform and growth strategy to harness and transform the economic potential of the nation into appropriate economy of scale and accordingly transform the social welfare and prosperity of the people. The agencies that took part include the National Trade Office, Department of Lands and Physical Planning, and Treasury, among others. They are now committed to progressing the SEZ agenda to the next stage of witnessing a first SEZ come into operation. Maricela Kelaton, TVWAN News.
Foreign nationals residing in Papua New Guinea must abstain from consumption of illicit substances and refrain from engaging in criminal activities, warns the Chief Migration Officer Stanis Hulahau. In the recent media statement, Mr. Hulahau says his office will not hesitate to detain foreigners and expel them from the country by way of deportation if their actions are a threat to national security. The Chief Migration Officer resounded this warning in light of a recent joint operation in Port Moresby where immigration and police officers, based on intelligence, apprehended and detained a foreign national, allegedly from New Zealand, for being in possession of methamphetamine implements and overstayed his visa, while he welcomes those who are here to invest and work in the country. They should not abuse the national laws and engage in illicit activities. In regional news, thousands of small plastic beds have washed up on a beach north of Brisbane after a water pipe breached at CSIRO Centre. The agency says the plastic was released into a wastewater well and then into the ocean on Monday.
They're tiny, plastic, and started turning up on Bribie Island beaches last night. Thousands of them.
I couldn't walk more than a metre without finding one.
Concerned locals sprang into action early.
We wanted to make sure we got here on the high tide and collect as many as we could before the next high tide.
The plastics are called biomedia and are used to filter water in aquaculture research.
The CSIRO says 40,000 of the small plastic beads were flushed into the sea from here at the Bribie Island Research Centre. They're non-toxic, but the local environment group fears they're just the right size to be ingested by marine life.
There's so many of them, they're so tiny and it's really hard plastic, and what was going through my mind is what's going to be in the sea trying to eat these little pieces.
The plastic is picked up by seagulls, dugongs, any of the native fish, and think it's food. And in the end, it'll eventually kill them.
Heavy machinery was called in to help rake up the debris. Moreton Bay Regional Council says a significant number of the plastics have now been removed.
It's really important to us that we continue to deliver a beautiful, pristine beach for our residents and our visitors, and also for our environment.
Niue Premier Daltron Tagelagi, on behalf of the government of Niue and NGO Tofia Niue, have launched a first-of-its-kind sustainable funding initiative called Ocean Conservation Commitments to ensure long-term conservation of its sovereign waters. This initiative will be managed by the newly formed Niue and Ocean-wide Trust, a charitable trust established to support Niue's ambitious conservation goals and foster a sustainable blue economy for its people. OCCs are a philanthropic mechanism designed to help fund the long-term protection of Niue's ocean territory whilst leveraging a wide range of mutually reinforcing outcomes. Donors may sponsor one or more OCCs, each representing the cost to protect and manage a square kilometre of Niue's ocean territory for up to 20 years. As part of the launch of the new initiative, Premier Tagelagi says the government of Niue will sponsor nearly 1,700 OCCs, one for every resident in Niue. Police are considering a criminal investigation into Catholic Bishop Christopher Saunders in light of a leaked Vatican report raising serious allegations of sexual abuse. There's a growing chorus demanding the Vatican hand over that report, detailing allegations of sex crimes by one of the highest-ranking Catholics in Australia.
Vos estis lux mundi, Latin for you are the light of the world. That's what the Vatican calls its rare secret investigations into one of its own, intended to bring sexual abuse to light. Leaked sections of a report obtained by 7 News allege Broome Bishop Christopher Saunders sexually assaulted 4 teenagers and young men and potentially groomed another 67, and often used church funds to buy alcohol for Indigenous youth.
To my knowledge, others around me had no idea that there was illegal predatory behaviour. What we did see was the amount of time spent with vulnerable young men.
Father Diggs says the seriousness of the allegations alone means Bishop Saunders should be defrocked.
For the Kimberley, for healing to happen, Chris Saunders needs to go.
Police launched an investigation into Bishop Saunders in 2018, but say they lacked the evidence to prosecute him. The Vatican's investigation, however, could uncover new evidence, which might lead to police reopening the case.
It's raised issues that potentially we're unaware of. People talking to the police may be a little bit reticent to come forward as opposed to a non-police officer investigator. So we're really keen to have a look at what that document says.
Anyone with evidence of child abuse has an obligation to inform the police.
The ABC has attempted to contact Bishop Saunders, who has previously denied the allegations.
In regional sports, host Tahiti came from behind to overcome Tonga and clinched spot in Group A at the OFC Under-16 Women's Championship. Tema Tonga's first goal freak was cancelled out by a second-half strike from Tuere Tapahuru before Wilani Kautai thundered a header home to seal all 3 points in front of a raucous home crowd. Aside from Tema Tonga's elusive free kick to give her side the lead, the opening period was low on chances, with Tahiti enjoying lengthy periods of possession and territorial advantage, but struggling to convert it into clear-cut chances. Here are the match highlights.
The game started with both teams knowing a win will win them the group, and Tema Tonga floated in the free kick right at the stroke of half-time to give Tonga the 1-0 lead. And then in the 18th minute, some hard work by Legaik. She sent the ball into the box, mistake by Kafoa, and Turere Tupahuru was there to put it into the net. 1-1 at that stage. And then in the 31st minute of play, it was again Legaik supplying the high ball for Kautai, and she put in a fantastic header into the net, and Tahiti 2-1.
Meanwhile, Solomon Islands held on for a draw to deny New Caledonia a semi-final berth. New Caledonia scored late on to secure a draw against the Solomon Islands, but it wasn't enough to advance to the semi-finals at the OFC Under-16 Women's Championships 2023. The 1-1 draw at the Stade Peter sees New Caledonia finished third in Group A on 3 points, with the Solomon Islands picking up a solitary point. It means Tonga and host Tahiti advance to the semi-finals for Group A, with first and second in group determined by the outcome of the match. The opening 45 minutes lacked rhythm and accuracy, with both sides trying to establish a pattern of play. Solomon Islands shaded the possession and territory stats in the early goals, but failed to sufficiently test Alessi Adjo in the New Caledonia goal. It was Grace Sister Kinney's left foot strike from the edge of the box that gave the Solomon Islands a shock 72nd lead before New Caledonia onslaught almost won them the match. Thanks for watching. Join us at 6 tonight for more.